At number 10, she can eat a swan. In the UK, it is illegal to hunt swans. While we're able to eat chicken, pheasant, duck, pigeon, turkey and things like that, in the United Kingdom it is not okay to kill and eat a swan. The swans in the UK are protected by the Queen, who also owns all of the mute, unmarked swans, as well as all of the swans on the River Thames. As the Queen partially owns the swans, she could, in theory, indulge in her forefathers' favourite meal of roasted swan with stuffing. She probably won't though, she takes her duty as swan protector pretty seriously. I feel like I've said swan a lot.
Importing pork or porn comes into number 9. Yes, that's right. Bringing in your beef jerky or a Playboy magazine is very illegal. Even if it's videos or books or magazines, it will be confiscated and you can face some pretty serious penalties. I'm not sure why you would need to pack, porn when you're on a trip, but I guess this happens a lot. So keep your bacon at home and your magazines under your bed and away from mom. Sorry moms out there if you're watching this. Number 8 brings us to staying in a hotel if you're under 18. For those of you who are under 18 years old and wanting to travel to Dubai with your friends, think again. It is illegal to stay in a hotel if you're under the age of 18 unless you're accompanied by an adult. According to the UAE law, you have to be 21 years old in order to check into hotels. Social media and photography comes into number 7. Taking pictures of certain government and military buildings is strictly prohibited. You also shouldn't take pictures of people without their permission. Some men have been arrested for taking pictures of women on the beach. I mean, that is just so stupid. What are you taking, a naked picture of a woman or her in her bikini? You're invading her privacy. If you're caught taking a picture in a restricted area, it can actually result in you going to jail for 1 to 3 months and you can face up a fine of $1,400. Now that is one expensive picture. Up next, number 6, we have smoking electronic cigarettes. Are you guys trying to quit smoking? Well, don't take your e-cigarettes to Dubai, because if you're caught with one, you are breaking the law and it will be confiscated and you can face a penalty. If you attempt to bring them into the country, your e-cigarettes will be confiscated at customs. You can't even bring it into the country. So figure out another way to quit smoking, guys. Okay, so cross-dressing comes into number 5. Over here in the Western Hemisphere, cross-dressing is a common thing because people are more liberal. However, in the United Arab Emirates, cross-dressing is considered as a violation of the law and it will not be tolerated. Anyone who is found cross-dressing will face charges and possible jail time. A man was arrested and put into jail for 1 month after he was caught wearing a dress in public. So it's no joke over there, but it should be accepted. I mean, why can't you just be who you want to be? Guzzling its way in number 4, we have being drunk. Dubai is extremely strict about being drunk in public, and they have a zero tolerance for drinking and driving. Tourists are permitted to drink in licensed restaurants, hotels, and bars, but it is against the law to drink in public places such as the beach. You even need a license to buy booze. Being drunk in public can lead you to 6 months in jail and some hefty fines. So just be careful when you leave the bar, because a lot of the police are undercover and they will catch you, even if you're just a little bit tipsy. Relationships outside of marriage sneak into number 3. All sex outside of marriage is illegal. If the United Arab Emirates authorities find out that you're having sex outside of marriage, you will run the risk of prosecution, imprisonment, fine, and deportation. It is against the law to live together or even share the same hotel room with someone of the opposite sex if you are not married. Showing the middle finger comes into number 2. Swearing and making rude gestures are considered criminal acts in the UAE, and you could face serious penalties if you're caught. Giving someone the middle finger is considered rude and totally unacceptable and illegal. In 2010, a 56-year-old man from Britain was arrested for giving someone the middle finger. The government took away his passport for 8 months while he was waiting his trial. If you were caught flipping the bird, you could face a jail sentence of up to 6 months and deportation. So just keep your fists closed like Arthur does. And finally, number 1, we have public displays of affection. Yep, that's right, hugging or kissing in public is illegal in Dubai. Even holding hands is socially unacceptable, and many people have been arrested for showing public displays of affection. Back in 2010, a British couple made international news after they were arrested for kissing in public. The local police said that this is a violation of the country's decency laws. Apparently this kiss was a little peck on the cheek, and they were sentenced to a month in jail before being deported. Is this real life right now? Totally insane. Why can't everyone just love each other in public? So if you guys are traveling to Dubai, keep your hands and lips to yourselves.
Number 10, approved haircuts. If you're a fan of going to the barber and being able to style your hair however you like, then you won't like this rule. In North Korea, both men and women are required to have one of only 28 government approved haircuts. There are 18 different styles for women women and only 10 for men. Younger men are also required to have hair no longer than 5 centimeters, while older men can get away with up to 7. Women are also typically expected to have a shorter style if they are married and a longer style if they're not. The list notably does not include leader Kim Jong-un's current hairstyle, and that is because no one else is allowed to share the same hair and look as their leader. All the styles appear incredibly neat and straightforward, likely due to North Korea's importance on their image and presenting themselves as a well put together and normally functioning country. Not a single hair out of place.
Coming in at number 9, she doesn't need a driving license. The Queen does not need a driving license. Unlike everyone else in the United Kingdom, the Queen did not need to apply for a driving license when she was 17. She didn't even need to take any driving lessons or a test to be able to drive. All driving licenses in the United Kingdom are issued in the Queen's name, so if she felt like having one, she could just in theory issue one to herself. Despite no test or license, the Queen is a competent driver. She actually drove an ambulance in World War II. When the Prince of Saudi Arabia visited in 1998, she drove him around her estate in her Land Rover. Now some say this was a boss queen move to advocate women's rights, because in Saudi, women aren't allowed to drive. Coming in at number 8, she doesn't have to stick to the speed limit. Not that the Queen necessarily goes around speeding, but technically she does not have to abide by the speed limits. Queen Elizabeth's sister, the late Princess Margaret, didn't have the same privilege, as she was once fined for speeding. Rumour has it, Elizabeth does like to drive pretty fast, but these days she does almost exclusively all of her driving on her own private estates. Coming in at number 7, she doesn't need a passport. A lot like with the driving license, the Queen can travel freely without a passport. She is one of only a very small handful of people that are able to travel without the otherwise legal requirement. Even huge celebrities like Taylor Swift will need to get their passports checked before they enter a country. This is an exemption saved only for monarchs. All British passports are issued by Her Royal Majesty, so again, in theory, she could just issue herself one. But what's the point? It's only one more thing that she's likely to forget when she packs for her holidays. Coming in at number 6, she is exempt from freedom of information requests. Like most countries, the United Kingdom has a freedom of information system that allows the press and public to reasonably ask questions about various situations. Many say this is vital in a democratic society like in the UK, but the royal family have used their powers to block the Freedom of Information Act from applying to them. To put it simply, the Queen's affairs, her family affairs, they are absolutely private. Coming in at number 5, the Queen doesn't have to pay tax. While all working UK citizens by law have to pay tax on their earnings, the Queen does not have to. However, she has voluntarily paid tax since 1992, which is very good of her. Coming in at number 4, she can start a war and she can refuse to make peace. While this technically isn't a law, the Queen is the only person who can legally declare war and peace. While this usually is carried out by Parliament, it absolutely cannot happen without royal approval. If the Queen wanted to declare war on America tomorrow, she legally could and the countries would be at war. Coming in at number 3, the Queen can refuse laws. Laws don't become laws in the UK until the Queen says so. Once a law has been passed through the Parliament and the House of Lords, it comes to the Queen so she can give it her royal assent. If she wanted to refuse a law, she could, although she probably never will. The last time a British monarch actually refused their royal assent was in 1708 when Queen Anne refused for settling the militia in Scotland. Coming in at number 2, the Queen cannot be sued or prosecuted. What? Don't even think about trying to sue the Queen because you legally can't. She also cannot, as monarch, be sent to jail. Neither does she have to give evidence in court. This actually applies internationally too. The Queen is above the law. So this kind of leads me to my number 1 point. This list could have actually been our first ever most amazing top 1 because really, the Queen can break any law. The monarch of the United Kingdom is wholeheartedly above the law. They do not have to abide by any laws of the people. They have never had to abide by the laws of the people. The Queen legally can do whatever she wants. She could even commit murder. Although, of course, she wouldn't. The Queen remains within the law as to set an example to her subjects. While she is above the law and cannot be sent to jail, if she ever did do something to test this, it would be likely that in practice she would see the repercussions and be overthrown. Once a monarch is no longer on the throne, for example by way of abdication, then they have to answer to the law like the rest of us.
Starting us off, number 10, with bouncing a check. It is illegal to write a check that will bounce even if you did it by accident. You will face criminal and civil charges, and after you serve your jail time, you will not be able to leave the country until funds have been paid in full.
Number 9. Elections. As we all know, North Korea runs under a type of dictatorship, with Kim Jong-un having total control over the country. The citizens are not allowed to choose who they have governing over them. So then, why do they have elections? That's right, like most other countries across the globe, people of legal age show up to a voting center and cast their vote on who they think is the best fit. While in countries like the United States and Canada, people have a choice on whether or not they actually want to exercise their right to vote. In North Korea, however, every single person over the age of 17 is required to show up on election day. Everyone is expected to turn up early, meaning there are usually lines longer than your DMV, and when you get inside, you're given a ballot, with only one name on it. You do not tick a box or fill anything out, you simply take the ballot and hand it in. While you theoretically could cross out the name, this would result in the secret police coming after you. Everyone then gathers outside and has a celebration, putting on a show of happiness and loyalty for being able to elect their leader. Number 8. Names. When you were born, it's most likely that your parents gave you a name. They had the freedom to give you just about any name they could come up with, and as a result, there are some people out there who didn't particularly like the name that they were given. But don't worry, as we know that we have the freedom to get our name legally changed, if that's what we wanted. However, citizens in North Korea have a little bit less choice when it comes to their title, as with many other things in their lives. Throughout the ruling of the Kim family, it has always been illegal to have the same name as the current leader, and the same remained true when Kim Jong-un took over for his father. An uncovered document said the following: all party organs and public security authorities should make a list of residents named Kim Jong-un and train them to voluntarily change their names. Authorities should make sure that there is no one making unnecessary complaints or spreading gossip regarding this project. As in North Korea, citizens are expected to never speak out against what is going on in the country, or else they and their families will face harsh punishment. Number 7. Gaming. I decided to sprinkle in a few South Korean laws in this list, as most of us are already aware of the backwards and harsh ways in the North. Those of us who like to stay up into the late hours of the night and play games like Fortnite or Minecraft would probably be devastated if we had to live by what is known as the Shutdown Law or the Cinderella Law. In South Korea, the Youth Protection Revision Act forbade children under the age of 16 from playing online video games between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. However, kids can get around this by instead just playing console or mobile games. But we all know that late night gaming on comms with your friends is where the true fun is to be found. Many children and their parents complained about this law, saying that it went against their rights and freedoms, but the Constitutional Court of Korea rejected the complaints. However, as of August 2021, the rule has been abolished and the children of South Korea are free to game again. Number 6. Students. If you already hated going to school as a kid, then I promise you, you would hate going to school in North Korea 10 times more. And not just because of the harsh rules and disciplines present within the country. While your parents probably hated going back to school shopping and having to spend all their money on your pencils, erasers, and binders, they actually had it pretty easy. Students that are attending school in North Korea are required to pay for and provide their own desks and chairs, and even have to pay money towards the heating of the school buildings. So while you probably had a desk that wobbled and an overly squeaky chair a few times, hey, at least you didn't have to pay for it. If you're a standout student though, you could be able to attend a special purpose school within the country, these being for children who appear to be exceptionally talented in things like academics, music, and sports, as they want to raise the best children to represent their country and boost their image. Number 5. Tattooing. Let's head back down south of the border again and take a look at another another weird law from South Korea, this one being in regards to having tattoos. When you're walking downtown in your hometown or any other city, you may notice that there are plenty of neon signs advertising places where you can receive tattoos. And while some of them may look a little sketchy, most tattoo artists are pretty well trained and know exactly what they're doing. In South Korea, however, they require a lot more training. In fact, you can only get a tattoo from a licensed medical professional, as the process is seen as a medical procedure. This makes South Korea the only developed country to have this law. Despite the legal implications, there are still around 50,000 operating tattoo artists who are risking fines of millions of dollars and multiple-year prison sentences in order to put art on people's bodies. And while there are strict rules in regards to tattooing, it's not illegal to have a tattoo. It's more just seen as taboo, and you may not be allowed to enter certain spaces if you have visible tattoos on your body. So I guess if I ever go to South Korea, I'll just need to pack a lot of long sleeve shirts. Number 4, religion. When we look at a history of the communities that are often referred to as cult-like or other strict affiliations, we often see that they are typically based on heavy enforcement of religion, like the FLDS or even Jonestown. So it might confuse some outsiders to learn that practicing religion in North Korea is completely banned. While the Constitution says that the citizens have the freedom to practice religion, we know that freedom isn't really a word that exists in that country, and people are prevented from practicing to their choosing. The country being considered an atheist state. People are expected to completely devote themselves to their leader Kim Jong-un, so there's really no room for religious practice there. While religion is banned, many people in the country apparently do believe in spirits and ghosts and shamanism, or human communication with the spirit world, and it's a very common practice among the people, reportedly most often popping up in the form of fortune telling. Defectors often communicating with and reaching out to spirits for advice on when they should attempt to bring the rest of their family across the border. Number 3, Sunday. As can be assumed, North Korea has a heavy emphasis on labor and constantly working. Adults and children alike are often forced into labor and putting in long hours for really no returns. It was even reported that orphan children were volunteering to work in mines and on farms. Knowing this, it will probably come as no surprise that even the weekends aren't a time for rest. While you might spend your Sunday afternoon sleeping in and playing video games, North Koreans spend their Sundays on a mandatory Labor Day. They often do cleaning around the house and are required to do all the work by hand. And speaking of labor, expecting mothers are also required to go into labor and birth their child completely alone, and cannot meet their husband or family until a week after the birth. Just a little side topic there. Number 2, defamation. Another South Korean law on the list. Let's take a look at their laws surrounding defamation. I figured this one was particularly topical due to the recent trial that I'm sure we're all aware took place. In countries like the United States and Canada, it's incredibly hard to actually prove a defamation case and be able to win it. But in South Korea, it's actually the opposite, and they have very strict laws surrounding it. In most cases, defamation comes from false allegations that negatively impacted the person that they were about. In most cases in South Korea, however, you can be found guilty of defamation even if what you said was 100% completely true and proven. Many people see this as their way of silencing critics and protecting powerful businesses and people, but the people who do support it say that they are simply protecting their right to privacy and not having their personal information shared. Number 1, disrespect. As the government forces the citizens of North Korea to see Kim Jong-un as their divine and just leader, no disrespect against his name, image, or really anything about him at all is allowed, and doing so can result in a very severe punishment to both you and your family. Citizens of North Korea are required to have a portrait of their present and past leaders hanging up in their home, and they will even send around inspectors to make sure. One woman was faced with a terrifying situation when her home caught fire. She ran back into the flames and smoke in order to save her 2 young children. So she's a hero, right? Well, not in the eyes of the North Korean government. She is actually facing jail time because in saving her children, she allowed the portraits of the leaders in the home to burn in the fire. In the case of an emergency like a flood or a fire, you are expected to prioritize the portraits and will only be considered a hero if you manage to save them from destruction. Another situation happened where a political member of the country was severely punished for falling asleep in a meeting with Kim Jong-un.